It's James Murray in the NetNewsLedger newsroom. I'm here today with Derek Fox. Derek has an exciting announcement. He's making a declaration to run for Deputy Grand Chief for NAN. Welcome, Derek.
Hi, how you doing, James?
Excellent. This is a neat move for you.
It is. I'm currently a practicing lawyer, but politics has always been, I shouldn't call it politics, I'll call it leadership. It's always been in the blood. Starting from my great-grandfather, Samson Beardy, onto my kukum, Georgina Beardy, who became Georgina Fox, and then my father, who was Grand Chief, Deputy Grand Chief, and Regional Chief of Ontario. But my father, who was also a leader, just as my father too, so it's always been there. And I spent the last year contemplating, knowing that the elections were this coming summer. I've spoken to elders, I've spoken to my father, I've spoken to past leaders, all giving their input about what I should do. And in the end, they said, follow your heart, follow your gut. And I think what I've been taught is that your gut, your heart is your spirit talking to you. Mm-hmm. And if you go against that, it's like going against a current. You're swimming up current for the rest of your life. So in making this decision, I'm following my heart, and that's to seek leadership with NAN.
You have a platform with a number of points in it. We'll probably be talking several times between now and the assembly where the chiefs are chosen. But what are the areas you see as most important to focus on for NAN moving forward?
Well, my platform, it's being developed as I visit communities. Okay. So it's not set in stone, but I've already drafted a letter that I'd be sending to the chiefs. A lot of them have received it. Some have yet to receive it. I've attempted to send to all, but I'm not sure that all will get my letter. But my platform is basically, it's economic independence through the attainment of education. And education, for me, is three pillars. It's institutional education, which is grades 1 or kindergarten to grade 8, and then high school. And for us, a lot of the high school students have to leave in grade 9, and a lot of them have to go to the inner cities like Timmins, Thunder Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, and a lot of them have to encounter racism and being lonesome for home and their family, and unfortunately suicidal thoughts or turning to alcohol is what happens to many of them. So that's a big issue for me, and where I feel I can help is just being a role model, engaging with them and advocating for them. They need that, because the racism is rampant in our cities, and for myself, I don't get picked on because I'm older, I'm wearing a suit, and they figure he's probably a professional or a lawyer. I'm not going to do anything like that. And he's a big guy. Yeah. But the kids walking around by themselves, walking in stores, we don't see that racism. We don't see them being picked on. Only they see it and feel it. So,
they really feel it.
Yeah. So that's a big issue for me. But the other thing is post-secondary. Post-secondary education empowered me in so many ways. It's not so much that I was seeking a higher education to get a good job or to provide a life for myself. It was the sake of stimulating my mind, bringing my values into the institution and stimulating my mind and being educated in other ways. So it empowered me. And so I really believe that education is a tool to empowerment for our people. So that's the main one. And as far as education, there's post-secondary, but I'd encourage our students to get their masters, their PhDs, their law degrees, their doctorates, become doctors. It's also the trades, it's also online and access. There's if people want to be educated from their community, they should have that access.
Yes.
Yeah, because many don't want to leave home either. So.
We just covered the Oski graduation, which is
Yes.
a couple of weeks in Thunder Bay, and then the students leave the city, go back home, and then it's online working at night, and it was so inspiring to see how many students. It was the largest graduating class this year, and those
Yep.
classes keep getting bigger. So
Yeah.
you can see it in the youth. They want change.
Yes. So, education, it's, as far as institutions, that's very important to me. They need an advocate. They need someone pushing that agenda, pushing that portfolio, and not just being satisfied with the status quo of the rights we've been given, because those rights are being stripped from us. So we need to enhance our access to education. So education, that's the first pillar. Education also involves, our people staying educated and becoming educated as far as our young ones on the land.
Mm-hmm.
That's hunting, fishing, trapping, collecting medicines, because that's a sense of balance and self-identity. For myself, it was I put in my letter that I was raised by my parents, but a lot of times I was sent back to Bearskin Lake, and it was my grandparents who taught me a lot about the land. And what I was taught was that the land is alive. It's like your mother. It's a part of your blood. It's a part of who we are. So in that sense, you can use it. It's going to provide for you. It's going to provide wild meat and water and medicine and so on. But at the same time, you need to take care of that land. Mm-hmm. So that's very important to me. And that should be important for our people. So while attaining a higher education, they need to maintain that balance. Ensure that we continue to teach the importance of hunting and fishing. Mm-hmm. I'm an avid hunter myself. I hunt moose, and I love it. And I love being on the land. And my hunting partner and I, we don't go out there for the sake of hunting moose. We go out there because we're on the land. Getting a moose is a bonus, and we're always blessed with that. So that's important. Education on the land. And then a third pillar of education is educating the public. Mm-hmm. As First Nations leaders, as First Nations people, empowering our young people to educate the public also when they get older, or if they want to do so when they're younger. And that's educating them about the truth of residential schools. I speak lots about residential schools because it's near and dear to my heart, because both my parents went to residential school. And I've seen firsthand the intergenerational effects of that legacy, and it's powerful. It's deeply rooted, and I believe it's the cause of many of our social issues today, as far as alcohol and drug abuse in our communities, violence against one another, our people in jails. It's I think it's the leading cause, and suicide is another one. And if we can't directly link the cause of those issues to residential schools, I know in my heart that it's probably the leading cause of it. I'm just speaking from experience.
It's also probably a leading issue that no one really wants to talk about in murdered and missing Indigenous women, mm-hmm. because that's a huge issue, and it needs to be solved. Mm-hmm. Not just criminally solved, but solved at the base, the root cause, so that it stops. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big project.
It is, yeah, and that's an issue that I'm going to Mushkego-Gamang about tomorrow. I'm going to see the walkers just to hear their stories. I had the chance to walk and talk with some of them when they were walking through, but I didn't get a chance to really engage with them on the level that I wanted. So they've accepted my invitation or my request to go to their community and get some insight on some of their personal stories on their losses. So yeah, that's interesting, because when you talk about missing, murdered and Indian women, which also includes girls, men, and boys, you look at what's causing these issues, what's the deeply rooted issues with respect to these people that go missing or getting murdered, and it probably goes back to residential schools and the history of abuse in their families, or poor parenting, or alcohol and drug abuse in the home. So it's definitely linked, and residential schools, educating the public, and treaties. Treaties is the other one.
Yeah.
And it's not just educating the public, but it's also educating our own people on treaties. Not all of our people understand the impact of the treaties, and a lot of the Canadian public don't understand the treaties. And I think if you can educate people, not just on reserve schools, but off reserve schools, you bring that into the curriculum. Kids are being taught the relationship between First Nations people and non-First Nations people. They're being taught the true history. They're growing up, and if they're being taught those lessons, they're not going to be subject to racism
It'll help a
easy.
lot.
It will help a lot to build bridges, build relationships. And I think a lot of adults who think that way probably can't be changed, but I think their kids can. And I think it's important that we start in the schools. But that's not to say people can't change. So my goal is educating the public. Our goal should be educating the public about residential schools and treaties, which are two big issues for me.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Declan, thank you for coming in, for sharing with us. I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot more as we go forward into the campaign. We'll be putting an invite out to all the candidates who are running. I want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you.